Now, before I move on too much with my reading, I wanted to talk a little bit about Adam and Eve and the fall. There's just a couple of things that I wanted to mention here because there is a somewhat prevalent idea. I don't know exactly how prevalent it is, and I'm pretty sure it's only in the church because we teach and we believe and we know that the fall was actually a good thing for us. It was Adam and Eve did transgress the law. They fell. It was a fall. But it was necessary for the plan to move forward. The fall was required. And because it was a good thing, even Eve and Adam and Eve both, as we read in the book of Moses, praised God for the fall because of everything that it did for them. And because of this, in the modern day, especially with the feminist ideologies out there, we get this idea that when Eve ate the fruit, she did it knowingly. She knew that this is what God wanted her to do. That it was necessary, and so she bravely took on the responsibility of eating the fruit so that everybody else could be born. And this was a conscious choice for her. Now, there's a couple of things before I get into reading any actual scriptures. There's just a couple of things here. First, to have this view, you really have to throw Adam under the bus. Because there's one of two things has to be true. If Eve took it upon herself to do this, then you have to believe one of two things about Adam. Either he was an idiot and didn't know that it was necessary. Only Eve had this knowledge. Adam didn't, and that's why he never ate the fruit. Or he did know, and he was selfish enough not to eat the fruit because he didn't want to leave the garden, and he'd rather not have kids, or he'd rather be in the garden than have kids. And rather than letting other people be born, he was selfish and stayed in the garden. And the only reason he ate the fruit is because Eve ate it first, and so she left, and so Adam, not wanting to be alone, again, selfishly eats the fruit to stay with Eve. That's my biggest complaint about the whole thing. But I have to say that it is wrong. It is a false idea. This is false doctrine. I would go personally myself, I would go as far as to say that this is a heresy. This is something that should not be taught and is completely contrary to the scriptures themselves. And I will read this one verse right here, well, not one verse, but one passage that spells it right out, tells you right out that Eve did not know what she was doing. And that is in the New Testament, Paul's epistle, first epistle to Timothy. So, 1 Timothy chapter 2, starting at verse 12, get us a little context. Well, actually, let's just say, Paul is talking to Timothy about a woman's role in the church. So they're not supposed to have the authority to rule. They're not supposed to be presiding and all that. But let's go to verse 13. This is where we really get the information right here. 13 and 14. For Adam was first formed, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Can you get any clearer than that? Eve was deceived. She did not do it consciously. She did not know what she was doing. She did not choose to eat the fruit in order to have children. She was deceived. Adam was not deceived. And I know a lot of feminists will hate this because Adam wasn't deceived. He did know what he was doing. Now, he did not understand the consequences of his action, but he ate the fruit knowingly. But Eve was deceived by the serpent into eating the fruit. And I just want to point out a couple of things here in the book of Moses that I think illuminates our understanding of Adam and Eve, of this whole story. Because, of course, we go back, what is it, chapter 4 is the story of the fall in Moses. Yes. I like that. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it became pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make her wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat. Okay. The serpent has told Eve, you're not going to die, but you're going to become wise. You're going to be like God, knowing good and evil. That is what tempted Eve. She did look at it and said, the fruit looks pretty good. Looks like it's tasty. I could eat it. We're good. But she was curious. And I love that. I love this about Eve. Eve was a curious woman. And when the serpent promised her knowledge, promised her understanding like unto God, she was willing to go against the command of God in order to gain that understanding. That's what she wanted. Now, my mother does have the theory that Eve was feeling the loneliness that most women will experience as they get older when they don't have children. And later on in the Bible, it talks about Sarah. She didn't have a son until she was 90, and she felt the emptiness of not having children. And even though they couldn't have children in the garden, my mom thinks that Eve felt that emptiness. She didn't understand it. She didn't know what children even were, but she felt there was something missing. And here comes the serpent saying, hey, you eat this fruit and you'll understand. And Eve thinks to herself, I have a longing in me that doesn't make sense. And if I eat this fruit, I'll know what it is. I'm going to eat the fruit. It's not a bad theory. But just going by the scriptures, we know she was deceived. But she was deceived by the serpent because of her curiosity. That's how the serpent got to her. He did not get to Adam. The serpent did not tempt. It says Adam was not deceived. So maybe the serpent did tempt Adam. There's actually a good chance that he did. And Adam was not deceived. But this is where we get Adam's real personality. I love this about Adam. And right here, this is after they're kicked out of the garden. We're in chapter 5 now. They're commanded to make sacrifices. And so they go and they make their sacrifices. And then it says, and after many days, an angel of the Lord appeared unto Adam, saying, why dost thou offer sacrifices unto the Lord? And Adam said unto him, I know not, save the Lord commanded me. And I think that captures the character of Adam perfectly. Adam was obedient. He had no curiosity. And I'm not saying he had no curiosity, but once God gave a command, that was it. Adam obeyed. To the best of his ability, he strove to obey God without question. God told him to sacrifice. I'm sacrificing. Why? Don't know. I'm going to do it anyways because God told me to. And I love that about Adam. And we see this even earlier. I love this when after they eat the fruit and God comes talking to him. I love Adam's response in the book of Moses. It says, and the Lord God said unto Adam, says, hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And then Adam replies, here we go, verse 18 in chapter 4 of Moses. The woman thou gavest me, and commandest that she should remain with me, she gave me of the fruit of the tree, and I did eat. What is Adam's reasoning here? Is he giving an excuse? Is he saying, it's her fault? No. When we understand Adam's personality, that he is just obedient to God, then we understand the kind of trap that God laid for Adam and Eve. It really is. God set them up. Because he gives them 2 commandments in the Garden of Eden. One is to not eat of the tree of knowledge. The other is to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. But until they eat of the tree of knowledge, they can't multiply. So in order to obey one command, you have to break the other. That's the setup. Now, Adam, he was content to sit in the garden and say, nope, he said not eat the fruit. I'm good. I'm with Eve. We'll do our best to keep both commandments. I know I cannot eat the fruit. How do I, we'll figure out this multiplying thing in time. I think that was Adam's view. Said, I trust God. He gave us the commandments. I know I can keep the one. God will let me keep the other. Eve was curious. She went out. She was deceived by the serpent. She wanted knowledge. She ate the fruit. Now Adam is faced with a dilemma. He cannot eat the fruit and obey that commandment. But once Eve ate the fruit, she is cast out. And Adam knew that. And now he is thinking, wait a minute. Before, when I was with my wife, I could at least try to keep the Lord's commandments. I could not eat the fruit, and I could try to multiply. But now I can't even try. I'm by myself. So he has a choice. Does he obey the one commandment and not eat the fruit and stay in the garden by himself? Or does he eat the fruit so that he also will be cast out with Eve, so that they together can continue to fulfill the other commandment that God gave them? And I do believe that a deciding factor in this choice that he made was he loved Eve. He didn't want to leave her. And so he made the choice to stay with Eve. He was not deceived. He understood the choice that he was making. I can either stay by myself or I can leave with my wife. And he chose his wife. But in everything, Adam's personality, you read the details of Adam in any of the scriptures that talk about him, he was a man that just obeyed God. Eve was a curious woman with desires, and she wanted to know. And it took both of them. God set them up. But if it had just been Adam, there would have never been a fall. Because Adam would not have eaten of the fruit. He just would not have done it. It required Eve. But that doesn't mean that Eve knew what she was doing. She was deceived, and she transgressed the law, and that caused the fall.